the most cool things ever made. Anyway, let me bring in my guests, starting with Cameraman.
It is I, Cameraman, the eldritch horror that Lovecraft didn't write about.
Indeed. Now let's bring in our friend Carl.
Hello, hello, hello.
Alrighty. Well, we've got a bit of a small group today, but that doesn't matter. We will see what happens.
Actually, I think, did you post the YouTube? Because it looks like you just posted the StreamYard.
Oh, whoops. I did. Whoops. Delete.
No worries.
There we go.
Technical difficulties, everybody. All right. Well, we've got the Noble Commando in the chat.
Hello. How's life? Oh, okay. Let's see. We've got another guy in the back room. Let's bring in Karaka.
Nice effect with the axe. Very realistic.
Yeah. Yeah. Good old 90s fantasy.
Yep.
That stuff was glorious and terrible.
In a glorious way.
Yeah. Very, very glorious. Anyway, so we're just waiting on Valerian to show up. I think that Cameraman has a very short offering since he's only doing poetry.
I have some short stuff.
Okay.
Some of it is probably not that good since I wrote it a while ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see. If we want to go clockwise, we can just do that. Unless KR, you have any time constraints.
I think you guys can go first.
Okay. Alrighty, Carl. How about you go first, and then
Right.
KR, and then Camera.
I can do that. Okay. This is a departure from my usual offering. There's no new Waters of Acre yet. This is a brief snippet of a scene from the recent Apple TV Foundation series, which I decided to go into a little more depth with. You may recall we had a bit of a discussion on the matter on the previous Writer's Showcase. So this is the scene that I was mentioning. And we begin with the Emperor and the Painter. The title's not especially important, but let's proceed. Through pillars of polished stone and between rays of golden sunset, Emperor Cleon XII wanders the halls of his palace. The imperial assassin follows after him, keeping pace like an obedient shadow. Though the emperor moves with all the calm grace that is expected of one of his position, his mind is yet a maelstrom of fury and apprehension. And at the very center of the storm there stands a man whose calm gaze only serves to scourge the winds of rage to greater fury. Harry Seldon. The Emperor can still picture the man, as clear as though he were standing right before him. That unfashionable suit, those thick sideburns, and that expression, that furious expression of smug self-assurance that is surely the mark of a master academician. His image stands before the imperial prosecutor, summoning his words from out of the emperor's own memory. Psychohistory, says he, is that field of mathematics which endeavors to model, explain, and ultimately predict the behaviors of groups of sufficiently large numbers of people. In other words, you claim to be able to see the future. The mocking words of the imperial prosecutor echo silently. The emperor's lips move in time with the script, for he has pored over it in his mind many times yet, as though trying to give the prosecutor greater weight through his mimicry. Is it really so strange? Selden counters, parrying the verbal rapier thrust as though it were the work of an amateur. Meteorology has become quite adept at forecasting the weather. Indeed, astronomers can predict the future position of the celestial bodies with literally mathematical precision. Is it so inconceivable that human societies might be similarly understood? Very well, then, the prosecutor says with challenge on his voice. If you can predict the future, then can you predict, shall we say, what I am going to eat for dinner this evening? Of course not, Selden shrugs. Why, the individual is far too small a category for psychohistory to be applied with any efficacy. I could, however, given the relevant data, predict, say, what the entire population of Trantor will eat for dinner within a reasonable tolerance of error, and so possibly reveal a number of trends and correlations which might prove enlightening to the— Enough! The prosecutor's voice cracks like a whip, and Selden's tide of academic rambling is stemmed for the moment. The Galactic Empire comprises some 4 trillion souls. Would you say that is a sufficiently large sample size for your purposes? It is. And have you made a prediction? I have. And would you care to share this prediction with the court, then? The Galactic Empire will lie in ruins within 5 centuries. Perhaps quicker? The Emperor can hear the ghostly courtroom of memory burst into a flurry of anxious gasps and disquieted conversation. But he has already left the scene behind. In his mind's eye, he now sits upon the triple throne of empire, flanked by his clone brothers, Dawn and Dusk. Selden stands again before them, his provincial apprentice, Gal Dornick, cowering at his side. If the fall can be accelerated, the Emperor says, humoring Selden's radical prophecies for the moment, can it not also be slowed? Selden shrugs, oh so theatrically. Potentially. By a few centuries, perhaps. Well, don't keep us in the dark. End imperial cloning. He dares. This provincial bean counter, this flotsam washed up from the shores of distant Helicon, this commoner, he dares to insinuate that the institution of Emperor itself stands at the core of the rotten tree trunk of Empire. Imperial cloning has brought peace and stability to the galaxy. Indeed, so incensed is Brother Dusk by this borderline treasonous rhetoric that he throws his glass against the floor as he rises to deliver his admonishment. Yet Selden remains unfazed, frustratingly unfazed by Dusk's righteous fury. You offer nothing new, says he. No new insight, no new perspective, no new direction in this ever-changing universe of ours. Just a younger grape from the same vine destined for the same old body. Other moments rise to present themselves before the Emperor's mind. Hours, days, weeks even, spent poring through the Imperial archives, seeking desperately for any scrap of knowledge concerning Selden's work that might prove enlightening. It is a maddening task. So much of Selden's work is esoteric to the point of nonsense. All thickets of numbers and swamps of compounding theory. And through it all, that haunting, horrifying notion that Selden might possibly, after all, be correct. And other academics are less than helpful. The Emperor recalls them well enough, those mountains of flesh and fat slithering forth from their mausoleum of calculus to flatter and placate. They claim that there is no substance at all behind Selden's writings, yet the Emperor can smell the equivocation wafting forth from them like a sickly perfume on a corpse. Is there a single soul in all the galaxy who is willing to deal frankly with their Emperor? He stops. The Emperor's wanderings through the palace have led him to the Mural of Souls, that ever-changing panorama to which each clone Emperor has contributed in his turn. And sitting at the foot of the mural, there is a portly man in humble garments, carefully brushing away at the pigments, preserving the work of empire for another generation. Master Orleo! The Emperor greets the imperial artist as recognition comes upon him. Empire, the man looks up. Always a pleasure to share your presence. How long have you served us, Master Orleo? 68 long and privileged years, Empire, the man says merrily. I've gone over this mural 4 times now. I'll wager I know each pigment by heart. Are there some pigments that are more difficult to work than others? Beige, the artist grumbles. Really? The Emperor laughs. A man of your talents, flummoxed by such a common hue. Ah, but that's just the trouble, Empire, the artist says. So much has been written on the more exotic colors, plum, periwinkle, saffron, and the like. But nobody thinks to give the same treatment to the more mundane ones. And so we've ended up, after all these years, with quite a dearth of literature on the subject. As it is, I've found no help. And beige remains, as it is, a terribly truculent pigment. What about crimson? The Emperor says, darkening his voice with a threat. Is that a truculent pigment as well? Empire? One of Selden's pamphlets was found in your chambers, Master Orleo. Well, yes, the artist stammers. I was, reading it. The only thing to do with a pamphlet like that, I suppose. You admit it, then, the Emperor says sternly. His imperial artist is knocking at the gates of sedition, and he had best watch his step. Well, of course, the artist says more steadily now, having found his footing again. Well, there's so many people these days nattering on about his work. Selden this, Selden that. Raven Selden, they're calling him, you know. I had to see for myself what the fuss was all about. I suppose I cannot fault someone for letting their curiosity get the better of them, the Emperor says, feeling a charitable impulse. What then do you make of his body of work so far? Well, I'll give the man this much, says the artist. He is a magnificent wordsmith. Really? Oh, certainly. Why, the man's wasted on academia. He should have been a storyteller, or playwright, or a novelist, or a writer for one of the teleserials. Who knows? Perhaps in a happier universe we might be discussing his body of work in more charitable tones. You think so? Well, call it the provincialism of my profession, Empire. But I've always been of the opinion that the universe could use more artists. Oh, you may be right, the Emperor says, laughing along with the artist. And his equations? What do you make of them? Oh, quite beyond my ability to judge, I'm afraid, the artist shrugs. If he has anything to say on the matter of art history or composition theory, well, then I might be of more insight. But as it stands, I must count myself among the laity upon the matter. I see, the Emperor nods. Well, do you believe he can truly predict the future, as he claims? The artist hesitates. Well, I've never been a superstitious man, Empire, but I don't believe the future wants to be predicted. What do you mean? Oh, how best to phrase it, the artist mutters. Permit me to draw an analogy, Empire. Let us suppose a typical working gentleman. He commutes to his place of work and returns home at the end of the day according to a settled routine, as so many are wont to do. One night, however, while coming home, he is set upon by a bandit. He's beaten to within an inch of his life, and the villain makes off with everything of value on his person. A most unfortunate happenstance, as I'm sure you agree, Empire. Now, suppose that our Professor Selden, or some other of his contemporaries, or someone copying his notes, takes a look at some data, works his mathematical witchcraft, and announces to the world a prediction of this very event on the very day before it is due to happen. Does the crime still take place? The Emperor considers the dilemma for a moment. Well, we don't know. Of course not. Our gentleman does not desire to be robbed, no more than does our robber desire to be cheated of his intended victim. Perhaps the gentleman will take a phase pistol with him, or raise the matter with the Imperial Guard, or he may just make a few careful changes to his routine, or decide to remain at home that day. On the other side of the matter, our bandit may decide to take arms with him as well, or involve a local gang for the share of the loot, or he may shift his attentions to other, less prepared victims, or perhaps he may even decide to re-examine his life and leave banditry behind. We can hope. And this is all before we can begin to consider the actions of others, such as the Imperial Guard or an impromptu committee of local vigilantes. There are any number of possibilities as to how our scenario might now play out. The only outcome that we can conclusively rule out is the original prediction. The Emperor completes the thought. Precisely, Empire, the artist says. Which brings us at last back to our old friend Professor Selden. There are two potential conclusions we can draw from this experiment of ours. Either one, the man is a complete crackpot who hasn't thought through basic principles and we've all been pulling out our collective hair over nothing. Or two, and this is the one that really worries me, Empire. This scheme of his that he's nattering on about in the press, his foundation, it's not his plan. It isn't? Well, not in the way that he's presented it before the galactic press, at least. Well, then what is his true plan? What indeed, Empire? The artist grins. Alas, I fear that's a question for keener minds to puzzle out. I suppose it may be, the Emperor says. He turns to go, leaving the artist to his work and his fantasies. Oh, I doubt I could handle the stress of the matter anyhow, the artist laughs. That's the great thing about being a mere artist like myself. People don't usually die when I get things wrong. The Emperor stops and slowly turns back. Would you care to elaborate upon that remark? He says, cold fury lurking behind his calm. Only a bit of fun, Empire, the artist says, his attention already returned to the mural. A bit of fun at Empire's expense, the Emperor accuses. The artist's face pales, realizing his mistake. Well, I didn't mean to insult. I only... But it is no use. A subtle hand signal from the Emperor, and the Imperial assassin steps out from behind a column with his phase pistol at the ready. A single shot flashes in the corridor, and the artist's fitful attempts at excuse evaporate, along with the rest of him. A dark crimson stain clinging to the mural of souls is all that remains of Master Oreo, Imperial Artist. The Emperor and his assassin share a quick professional glance before the second man returns to his place in the shadows. Such a tragedy about Master Oreo. But then these things do happen. Having been in the employ of the palace for nearly 7 decades, it is unlikely that he has any family who would miss him terribly. And if anyone should inquire, then the Emperor will be quite willing to forward them a copy of the official autopsy, which will explain how he perished peacefully in his sleep from, well, one of any number of conditions that tragically afflict the elderly and the obese. Nothing else to be said upon the matter. Now then, the Emperor resumes to his wandering, and his thoughts once again coalesce around that troublesome gadfly, Harry Selden. What to do? What to do? And that's the end. Any thoughts?
Very nice. Definitely better than what I saw. Emily, I didn't see much of it. I like how you definitely, like, there's no POV internal monologue in there. It's very standard third person limited.
Well, that's the thing, we do have access to the Emperor's internal thoughts, which is an advantage that television series didn't have.
True.
Ooh, but I see from the private chat that we have someone waiting for us.
Indeed. No, you didn't miss Shenna. It was a
reworking of a scene from the Apple TV series Foundation.
Oh, okay. The Foundation show. Okay. So,
Any question at all?
So it was derived from the show, which is derived from the novels by Mr. Asimov.
Indeed.
And
I was going to point that out. It's an adaptation.
Sorry. By all accounts, the show was bad. Nobody liked it.
I guess it's interesting that your work, what you presented is an adaptation of an adaptation.
Yeah. Let's play the Inception music.
Wow. Yeah. So I posted a picture of a crow wearing a hammer and sickle to the waters of Accra, and Dr. Crow says, "I think I'm going to vomit."
Sounds like Crow.
Yeah.
So I was amused.
Oh, no worries. But yeah.
I liked it. I liked the sense of character I got. And you did a fair impression of Lee Pace's voice.
Oh, yeah. Lee Pace, if there is anything good about that series, it is Lee Pace's performance. That man, I would listen to him read the phone book.
Yeah, it kind of seems as though he's almost usually the best thing in almost anything he's in. In The Hobbit, he's like 4th or 5th best thing.
I mean, that's the thing. I saw the original designs that Guillermo del Toro had for Thranduil. He was really done dirty. He could have been so much cooler.
Whoops. Oh dear, someone just died. But anyway, the chap who played Thranduil could have been so much cooler if...
I mean, if they'd used Guillermo del Toro's designs.
Yeah,
you actually get a sense, like, you kind of feel that he's just like some other elf, but he has a nicer house. But he still, looks, like a little bit like Elrond, But with the original designs from Guillermo del Toro, you really get the sense that this is a guy who is like a master of a quarter of Middle Earth. Someone who you really expect to have power.
Is this what you're talking about?
I can't really see the.
Enlarge it.
Sure. Let me share a window rather than just a screen.
I think those are some of the later designs. Like the original design was like a huge, like a sun behind a throne, and it's all red and wood. And it's pretty imposing. Yeah. See that guy right there?
This?
Yeah, like a god emperor of Mirkwood.
Yikes.
Yeah. Man.
Remind me not to annoy him.
I'm torn.
Yeah, imagine that guy, speaking with New Pace's voice. Stay in the dungeons.
So basically Hellboy 2 then.
Yeah.
I'm torn because I think this looks good artwork wise. I think it would be hard to sell this in live action. It looks like it looks like something out of a very it looks like they put it something out of Hellboy and the Golden Army, and it works for the design aesthetic of Hellboy and the Golden Army. I don't know how well it would work in Lord of the Rings, but maybe that's just my bias. I don't know.
Anyways, returning to the snippet I wrote, the main thing I really wanted to get across was there's an element from the one of the few snippets of psychohistory theory that we actually get in the original novels, is the notion that in order for a prediction to have effect, the public, or whatever body that the prediction is made about, has to necessarily be kept in ignorance of the prediction. So there's sort of like a little quantum observability principle going on there. And that's something that really didn't come across, I think, in the show.
I get the sense that the people making the show are mentally deficient.
I mean, part of it is just I mentioned earlier as well, Foundation is basically impossible to adapt.
Is this show? This is a recent show, right?
Yeah, like
like a year or two ago.
A year or two ago. They're just putting together the second season. It's gonna, I think, air in like a month.
There's some interesting, a few interesting videos by the Dragon Demands. I don't want to derail the showcase, but I should allude to them at least. The Dragon Demands has some interesting ones about the conditions of under which the writing is taking place and the working conditions. So there was a book that recently came about Lost and about the culture, the abusive culture that existed backstage, and how it was all very, the showrunners were very dictatorial and they were also kind of nasty, and applying it to Game of Thrones. And there's another one about the WGA strike that they did some time ago.
I mean, yeah, you may have noticed the writers are all on strike right now.
And it may result in improvement in some cases. Like Rings of Power can only get better there without the involvement of Payne and McKay.
Well, the writers, it's not Payne and McKay aren't the ones that are striking.
Well, I know that they have said that they are not going to be writing for season 2. I'm just saying they haven't done it. They're not doing it. They're involved in the strike for and they will not be writing for season 2 at all.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
that's why I say it can only improve without the presence of Trina McKay, because those men are idiots.
Yeah. Yeah, there can be a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to the WGA and all that, but I'm not want to get into that too much.
Well, I think the main thing that they're scared that AI will do a better job than they are, because they just suck at their job so bad that AI would do better.
Well, there's actually quite an interesting video by the Dragon Demands about it, and how a lot of it has to do with the mini rooms and how it's too much. How the writers can't do their job properly because they're not allowed to go on set and correct things, and how it's too concentrated in the hands of like one or two showrunners. And
okay,
so it's worth listening to if one wants to actually know what's going on, as opposed to simply get into knee-jerk anti-unionism or something.
well, it's not even anti-unionism. I've just heard from various people who are striking, that are writers, that they have mentioned that they really hate AI, the idea of AI taking their jobs for them.
Well, that's one of the factors too. That's not the only factor, but it's one of the factors. So
Right.
anyway, it's interesting.
Yeah, everyone was worried about AI taking everyone was been saying, oh, you better get a degree or else the AI is going to take your job at Walmart. Turns out, no, the AI is coming for the jobs that need the degree.
Balder. Oh, he died again.
Oh boy, everybody's dropping like flies these days. We should probably move on to the next person before more people die.
Sounds good.
Okay, so let's see.
I believe it is Valerian's turn.
Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna have a go again at the serious novel. People do have trouble with the names, but let's see if I can reasonably clarify what's happening. The Emperor was the backstory. The Emperor was lusting after a couple of the main characters, Margaret and Barama. The parents didn't want them to go and join the Emperor's harem, so he had them killed. So they sent him a protest, because also they gave the dishonorable burial to the parents. So they sent a protest about that and about various issues like slavery and stuff like that. The Emperor has not responded well to that. So hopefully that will clarify things a tiny bit. There will be some place names and stuff. Don't worry about it too much. So the army stopped to rest near the source of the river Nduchari on the way to the castle Tserthatan. They had had a relatively easy voyage up the Nduchari from the city of Cheretaba, and had had a particularly pleasant time in the town of Risora, enjoying their billeting quarters and picking up supplies and women. The inhabitants had been a tad grumpy, heaven knew why. Townsfolk were such ingrates. Now that I mention it, peasants were ingrates too. If it weren't for the army, who would protect them? The animals had had a bad attitude as well, running, or hopping, or swimming, or flying away as soon as the soldiers approached, when they didn't decide to adopt a more aggressive posture and attack. One soldier had been badly wounded by the spiky tail of a glyptodont, and another had been mauled by a refractory saber-toothed tiger. But the hunting was done for now, and the army were enjoying some much-needed rest and recreation. Luckily, some of the soldiers had brought women and other amusements with them from the town of Risora. The army might be hard, but it came with some nice perquisites. Still, marching was an annoyance, and the armor for the rank and file was tacky. Low-quality glyptid armor with a sloppy attempt at a marsupial goat on the breastplate. Who wants to wear that? Few were more annoyed than Governor Burunu. He's one of the commanders, whom this way of life did not suit at all. He had been dragooned into coming along with this smallish posse, or rather, when he realized that an army was headed in the direction of Tserthaton, whether he would or he nould, he had had to insist on accompanying it for fear that the castle and the girl would slip from his grasp. Of course, he had demanded the army in the first place, but now that he had it, he found that it didn't quite live up to expectations. Pardon me. He had supposed that he, as governor, would be in charge, but the commanding officer, Daraimi Bemwe Gara, Duke of Sombema, yes, the same Daraimi whom we saw so charmingly ordering his elderly lady slave beaten several chapters ago, seemed to have other ideas. I want as little harm done as possible, said Burunu for the 27th time as he met with Daraimi in the latter's pavilion, a large rectangular affair of green and crimson that had been got up to look like the head of a mountain hawk, with the door shaped like a beak. The tent was surrounded by a crudish cloth sculpture of the imperial marsupial goat and had wooden sculptures of birds of prey to the left and right of the entrance. Burunu didn't think much of the aesthetics and vastly preferred his own modest tent of blue and red, also surmounted by a marsupial goat, but far more tastefully, with the doorway flanked on either side by a sculpted palm tree. As governor, that is my will. He banged his staff on the ground, then remembered that Daraimi was his peer, stopped himself, and scratched his toupee instead. You're here to pacify and provide some teeth to my claim to Margaret's hand, not to destroy. Daraimi chortled and went on eating in silence for several minutes, seemingly even less impressed by the staff banging than Burunu's men had been. The cad was enjoying a fine meal of glyptodont and beech fruit stew, shoveling it into his enormous oral cavity with revolting slurping noises, but didn't offer Burunu any, needless to say. He occasionally paused to stare in the mirror at the exquisitely painted bird of prey on his scale armor. Only the officers got scale armor, and they also got to have the symbols of their houses painted on the breastplate. Burunu, as governor of Ichalumu, had 3 palm trees on his. Some of these mainlanders were incredibly uncouth, Burunu remembered. Half Chuggan. He pretended to himself that he didn't know that the imperial family were also half Chuggan. Are you loyal? Inquired Daraimi at length sarcastically, in the middle of a bite of glyptodont. Exalta placed me in command here, with the express command that these traitors be published with death and desolation. I hope the traitors are all in the castle, none in the army. I resent your insinuation, retorted Burunu with what he intended to be a dignified glare, which might have been more successful if his toupee hadn't started slipping off again. You're not from around here, you know nothing about it. I have served Exalted loyally for 2 decades, while you sat around on the mainland beating up slaves and hopping on sarangis. I don't want my property damaged. Your army show no respect. Daraimi chuckled and took a gulp of mango wine. You asked for an army? You got an army. So I don't know what you're whinging about. As it happens, the commander of the army is me. And what do you know about commanding anyway? I know the province of Ihalamu, said Bruno. I'm the governor here, and I don't want any more of my subjects killed than is strictly necessary. That Glyptodont looks good. The rebels must be crushed, growled Naraimi, pointedly ignoring the comment about the Glyptodont, except to chomp on it with more gusto than ever. That's the purpose for which Exalted sent this army here, and that's what he has charged me, as commander, to do. He said, and I quote, "Kill them dead." Bruno clapped his palms loudly in denial. No, you don't understand Exalted will or how to interpret it. He'll say kill them all when what he really means is to pacify them, because he's been having a bad day. Every governor on the Isle of Oro knows this. He always speaks hyperbolically. His commands are to be interpreted based on facts on the ground, and the facts are that 8 times out of 9, killing does more harm than good. Mass killing does more harm than good. Exalted said to kill and torture rebels. We're going to kill and torture rebels. And rape, of course. Daraimi began to salivate as his eyebrows bristled at the thought of rape, and he began making a sawing motion with his right hand, as he commonly did when he got excited. He greedily gobbled down some beech fruit stew. Bruno stared with distaste upon the filthy, vulgar, and brutish pervert seated across from him and wondered, not for the first time, why Karat had saddled him with this scum. He had somehow suppressed a shudder of revulsion and carefully adjusted his toupee, making an heroic effort to remain calm. Most of them probably aren't even rebels, though, he said with too studied calm. I only had 2 real rebellions in my entire tenure, along with a handful of riots. It's generally enough to put the fear of Nihandra into them, to kill 1 or 2 ringleaders, pardon the rest, and then make them clean up the mess. And I want as little rape as possible. We are here to win them over. How will we do that if we rape? That Glyptodont looks good. It is good, smirked Daraimi, and belched loudly. Thank you for your advice. I will continue to ignore it. You islanders don't know anything about warfare or rape. He guffawed for several minutes, slapped his side, and belched again. Bruno remained resolutely unamused. I am Margaret's husband, and I have the claim. Perhaps, said Daraimi, and washed down the Glyptodont with some mango wine, then took another gulp of beech fruit stew. But who has the army? And let's see, I think that will do for now. I think that will do for now.
Well, you can really tell a guy's priorities when he's worried about the whether or not the armor his soldiers are wearing is too tacky. Yeah, really committed to strategy, this fellow, you know?
Well,
here's a guy I could really sit down and discuss the finer points of operational art, right? We get that? We really getting that sense?
Well,
Yeah.
Fashion is important, don't forget.
I imagine it is for non-military people.
I mean, it'd be jolly embarrassing to be at a battle with the wrong armor on.
It would be.
You look silly.
But as long as it's effective armor, I'm okay with that.
The apparent opinion is apparently divided in this stream about the importance of aesthetics versus effectiveness.
Yeah, who cares about effectiveness? Mind you, the armor probably wasn't very effective either.
Probably not.
Maybe it was. It might have been okay. I mean, Glyptodont shells are pretty hard, but it's probably like falling apart in places and stuff.
It's starting to make me think that you would really, really like Rage of Dragons.
Rage of Dragons, is Does everyone have an exquisite fashion sense in Rage of Dragons?
Well, it's essentially Bronze Age Egypt, so probably have good fashion sense, I imagine.
Egypt. Rage of Dragons. Interesting. Who's that by again?
Evan Winters. He's only written 2 books. Rage of Dragons and the sequel. I can't remember the name of the sequel off the top of my head. Rage of Dragons.
What was his name again?
Evan Winters.
Winters.
Fires of Vengeance is the second book. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah.
Rage of Dragons, Fire of Vengeance.
Yeah.
Fire of Vengeance.
Yeah, it's very different than most fantasy books I've read in terms of it's very, very different. He puts a lot of his a lot of his I think it's West African culture. Okay, it's Oksa. I probably will mispronounce that, but that's the inspiration for the that was the inspiration for Evan Winters, and it's actually really, really cool.
Interesting. We just did a stream on that last week about using using locales that are not necessarily based on medieval Europe.
Yeah.
Who's up?
What was that?
What did you just say? I think I just cut out for a sec. What did you?
Yeah, I think you're just cutting out all over the place, it seems.
Yep, your computer demands a sacrifice.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Very carefully.
Am I up?
Yep.
We
Okay,
can hear you
so-
now.
Okay, so this is. Can you guys still hear me?
Yep.
This is a short story that I wrote for like a class. It's for a series that I'm not really writing anymore because of just stuff that happened. But I might just I'll read it because like this is a short story set in that world.
Oh, pardon me one moment. It doesn't even have any
Let's give
feedback you want to
Valerian.
give.
Yeah, let's give Valerian specific feedback before we move on to
Okay.
yours, Cameron, if that's okay.
I think we might be done with mine. I just wanted to see if there's any like feedback-ish stuff. It's kind of brief and it might be a little confusing, although I think I hope the basic lines of what's happening are clear enough.
No, I thought it was pretty simple to follow.
Good, because sometimes people complain about the names and they get caught up on the names, but the names shouldn't be as much of a problem when you're reading, as opposed to hearing it read.
Yeah, I think that the work with the bad guys is actually very clear and precise, which is nice.
Yeah, I tend to have fun with the bad guys anyway.
Indeed.
I'm just wondering
Don't
about.
we all? Don't we all?
Actually, got a quick question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Carry on.
I just had a quick question. Like, I think I remember looking up the first chapter you put on the server earlier, but I didn't fully get to read the entire manuscript. And just hearing the name right now, like, did you base on like some, like, what was the culture you based it on? For some reason, I'm thinking Indian, like the Indian subcontinent or something.
Yes and no. It's well, you see,
Was it?
the history of this world goes back. I invented it when I was a kid, and some of the languages actually are not modeled on, inspired by like Sanskrit or Arabic. Some of them, and then so some of the religions have a remote and distant inspiration in India, but then it's also mixed with Arabia and a whole bunch of other things got mixed up into it. So there is element. I'm trying not to make it too European. In fact, these people wouldn't know anything about Europe at this point. They would never have heard of it. Because it's located on our world in a continent that's somewhere between the Americas and Asia, and how that works in terms of the shape of the Earth and all that, I don't know. I'm hand waving all that, but they don't. Yeah, but they don't know. So they've never heard of Europe or any of that stuff. So I try to make our culture different, but then I do have references to things like castles and the title count and stuff. But the castles don't look the same either as European ones. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, because I wanted it to be a little bit more exotic, not too exotic. I mean, there are a lot more exotic cultures in the real world. Like if I'd done Aztecs or Mayas or something.
They're correct. Oh yeah, Aztecs are nuts.
Exotic is relative.
Sorry?
Exotic is relative.
Yes.
Yeah, I would definitely say that the Aztecs were fairly exotic, especially if you consider the cutting out of people's hearts, about 15K a year, I think it was around.
Yeah, it got pretty extreme. They also had, of course, the famous 15th century poetry. So you had to go to a sacrifice in the morning and write some poetry in the evening or something.
Well, it just rounds out the day. You don't want to spend all day doing one thing. That's just really fun.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, you gotta have a well-balanced mass murder diet.
Hey man, the gods got to get their food somehow. Otherwise, Quatliqué is going to eat the sun. Do you want Quatliqué to eat the sun?
Fair enough. You have a point.
Yeah.
I'm all for it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if the Spanish killed a large percentage of the Aztecs, it's probably a good thing that the Crusaders came in, that the conquistadores came in.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's complicated, but it's a good thing that they Christianized them. That part is good.
Yeah.
That part's definitely good. I mean, this is like a poster card case for Christianizing. No, not to be what's the word I'm looking for? Controversial. But this. If you ever want a case for Christianization, this is one.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, this is bad, and we don't want this to continue. So, yeah, this is horrifying. Stop doing this.
Yeah, I mean, most of the bad bit had to do with people dying of smallpox and that.
Which technically wasn't under their control, really. It just happened.
Yeah, I don't think they meant to do it. Yeah, they did destroy Mexico City, which is not Mexico City, Tenochtitlan, which is kind of sad, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's kind of sad, but
yeah, it is sad.
But
yeah, to be a model of nice, sustainable aquaculture, and now it's one of the most polluted places in the world.
Yeah,
all because they had to fill in those dang lakes.
Bother.
Yeah. Anyway, I believe we should probably move on to old cameraman at this point. What do we say?
Yeah, I think it's he can have a go now.
Actually, I gotta get going right now. So sorry, I'm gonna be missing it right now. I don't know. Should I still leave a link from whatever I wanted to share, or just save for next time?
Oh,
save for next time. Oops. I think.
All right.
Yeah, probably.
Take care, everyone.
Sorry to take away your
hear me?
Yep, I got you.
Yep.
I hear you.
Okay, so here it is. Like I have a few short stories. I might read a shorter one that I have, since I guess it's not as it does a bit less world building. It's just a short story I wrote. Is that cool?
Yeah, sure. Sounds cool.
Sure.
Yeah, that's fine. Go for it.
Okay. Okay, here we go. I went for a walk today. I know he wants to help, but it's not working. They can't do anything to help me with my blindness. I always found myself unable to comprehend the world around me, causing me to ram into objects around the house. Ever since the accident, I felt like nothing more than a hopeless patient, with the family acting as a personal doctor for me. I almost feel like a burden on this family. When I heard them talk about taking me on a walk, I wasn't that excited. Aside from smell and temperature, I can never really know where I'm walking or what time it is. Why do they pretend like everything is okay? I doubt that things will ever get back to normal anytime soon. They should honestly leave me alone and stop trying to look after me. I'm already making their lives more difficult. They all seem sad about my condition, but I don't get why. Not many of them spend that much time with me. Probably because I bit most of them. I'm aware that they also owned another dog several years ago when the kids were still younger. I can easily guess why she isn't here anymore. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe a few of them weren't able to bond with. Maybe a few of them didn't want a new dog after what happened to the previous dog. Still, I do share somewhat of a friendship with the others. The walk itself was uneventful. I was taken out into the backyard to run away and occasionally use the area as a restroom. I miss when we would walk around the neighborhood and see different people in town. It always gave me a sense of the environment, while also allowing me to get into barking matches with other pets in the area. It just isn't any fun nowadays. I wonder how long they'll even keep me around. All I ever do is stay indoors and bark at people. I can tell that the family is growing tired of me and are thinking of potentially giving me up. While I don't blame them, this is the only family I've ever had. They rescued me from an awful situation, and if they ever gave me up, it would destroy me. Overall, I'll just have to wait and see if they no longer want a broken pet like me. And that's it.
Oh, that is quite sad.
Yeah,
It's a dog's life.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, it's about yeah. It's sort of I'm sort of trying to lean you in there to like whether or not the dog was like who was narrating, and then finally revealing that it was a dog.
Mm.
Yeah, you just sort of figure out from the context, which is interesting. Instead of just saying, "Hey, I'm a dog."
Yeah, I guess as a writer, one of the things I like doing is to get into a character's head and see what someone would be thinking in a situation. And so I decided to do this by just getting into the head of someone that can't really communicate.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of actually a rather amusing song that I think I'll share with you guys right now.
Uh-oh.
My life's a dog. It's rough being a dog. I work all day while kids can play. It's just not fair at all. It's life's a dog. It's rough being a dog. On a stick, catches it, he gets so much down. I want respect. I know I'm not perfect.
Yeah. Why are you always in a doghouse?
I'm a dog.
I mean, yeah, it do be like that.
There's a diary of a dog on the internet somewhere, but it's a bit more upbeat. The kids, my favorite. This
was kind of an attempt to write, I guess, something that sounded like more like a story for younger readers, but still pretty sad.
There's also a cat's diary online, which
Oh
is
God.
that's very entertaining. Because the cat is incredibly paranoid. It's completely nutters and it's paranoid and it's everything's plotting against it and stuff. So anyway, Perion.
That sounds about right for cats. They often are.
I'm allergic to cats.
So is my mother. So you're in good company.
My family is mostly owned dogs.
We used to have cats when I was younger.
Also, if to get, I guess, a bit personal, the dog in this story is based on my dog.
Oh dear.
Just health issues that she's had over the years.
Poor thing.
You probably remember the dog because during the last time I was here, I was walking the dog, and that sort of interrupted me telling a story.
Oh yeah, I think I remember.
Yeah,
Somebody
that was
walking the dog.
Yeah, that was because I had to walk the dog. So yeah, so that's basically what I have. I was wondering what you guys would think since I wrote this for a class, or was worried that it might not be that as good as when I wrote it. But I'm glad you guys seem to enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I really do like the creep of details. At how you eventually, at some point, you put two and two together. They say, "Oh, this is a dog." That was very clever, and I like that.
Yeah, without saying so. It's a little short, but yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's for a class. You don't want to bring your A material for a class.
Yeah, it's true.
And I think I had like a specific word count that I had to work with, so.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, since
Makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's very good poetry. I like it. Mostly, I'm not like the biggest like poetry person. I don't know much about it, but
I sort of had some poetry in here, but it's not one of the poems it's not really one of the poems I've written, even if it does sound kind of like that. I guess that's just the writing style I had in this when I was taking this class.
I'm interested enough in older poetry, but mostly if it's like epic or something.
or semi-archaic.
Yeah, if it's like older or if it's from the period when they worked by rules and stuff, versification, that. Whereas opposed if it's like more or less automatic, then I tend to lose interest. It's not really automatic because even modern writers, modern poets, I believe, spend a fair amount of time, but it's not according to set rules.
Makes sense.
It's not fair, so it's not fair for me to say it's automatic. But I like the older stuff, but I don't even listen. I don't think I read that much poetry these days. But if I did, it would probably be Beowulf or something.
I didn't really write that much poetry until I took this class.
I wrote an epic poem based on my world at one point. It was all done in hoo-ha, alliterative verse. And that had lots of names too.
Well, they all do.
I guess most of them do, yes.
That's actually a quote from The Room.
No.
Actually, the Disaster Artist, the book that was made about the making of The Room, where it's like, well, actually, it's really funny when he's going to pick up his buddy Mark, Greg Sestero from his mom's to take him to LA, his mom is like, "How old are you?" "I'm 21." BS. It's like, "Don't hurt my son." "I won't do it." "Well, we all do." And
Well,
don't.
I guess he didn't really hurt her son because they ended up making the greatest masterpiece in history.
No lie.
And then one of the funniest parts is she then said, and no sex. No sex with my son.
Ew.
We all do.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah,
Are you guys excited for Big Shark?
the Schrodinger's movie. Yes.
Yeah, it's Tom. Apparently, it's had some screen. Apparently, it's coming out this year.
I want to watch it. I want to watch it so bad. I love Tommy Wiseau's work.
He is the greatest modern director.
Clearly.
Ooh, there were some actual people here earlier in the chat. I mean, not here. I'm not talking about the.
So the film had its premiere in April of this year, and it's coming out in August. Yes.
What's the
Yeah, Tommy Wiseau's next movie.
Oh joy.
The first movie he's directed since The Room.
Oh, it's gonna be glorious.
Oh dear. That's a.
Have you ever wanted to see Tommy Wiseau fight a shark?
Yes.
That's what this movie is.
I haven't seen The Room, but I gather it's the most horrific thing. Pretty much the most horrific thing ever.
Well, I made Trip watch it because she lost a bet, and she hates me. Hated me for at least a few days after it.
Only a few days. She was merciful and compassionate then.
Yeah, it was. It was extremely funny.
You should kneel down and give her thanks.
She's probably gonna cheat on you. She's probably just gonna cheat on you like Lisa did with Mark.
We're not in a couple anymore, so there is no such thing.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
When she hated you for making her watch The Room, did she say "You are tearing me apart"? Done.
You're tearing me apart, Lisa. You're tearing me apart. It was originally in the script, it was "You're taking me apart," but because Tommy was so sucks at pronunciations, he couldn't say that.
You're taking me apart.
Same reason why he named the character of Mark after Mark Damon. Because he misspelled Matt Damon as Mark Damon.
Yeah, and also why you will never hear anybody in the room say fiance.
Because he hates
always
apparently he doesn't like French or something.
So what do they say?
They just
future
say
wife. Future wife
and future husband. They just don't say fiance ever.
Well, if he doesn't want to use words based on French, then that takes about 2/3 of the English vocabulary right there. I guess he doesn't. I guess characters don't sit at tables or sit on chairs at tables either.
Maybe it's just because it's too froggy sounding.
It's a jolly good thing there's no coup d'etat in this film. With my luck, turn out that there is. Anyway, I dodged that bullet.
Yeah. Yeah, the reaction is on YouTube, and it's extremely amusing, to say the least.
But in order to watch the reaction, you have to watch the film too, right?
Yes.
Oh.
To an extent.
Probably not worth it. Yeah, Your Highness was bad enough.
This is way better than Your Highness.
Yeah.
Your Highness is trying to be funny. This is trying to be dramatic and failing at being dramatic. That's way funnier.
I don't know. I think best not find out. There are things that man was not meant to know.
That works. That works. Okay, let me see.
Am I actually going to get to listen to you read this time, Bright Lord?
I believe so, yes.
Good.
Maybe just for that one, I should read a threesome or something.
No!
You probably would.
Who?
You probably would, wouldn't you, Don?
No.
Funny thing is, I have one written up and
No.
ready to go. Yeah, and it's with a nephew and his 2 aunts.
No. What is with you and incest anyway? It's kind of weird Mormon thing. Are you all inbred or something? Whoops, sorry, that was rude.
Valerian, do you know what company you keep? We thrive on rude humor, on what might be called rude humor.
I thought we were all incredibly refined and sensitive.
Us.
Yeah,
I'm not.
I guess my illusions have fallen away. The scales have fallen from my eyes. My worlds have been turned upside down.
True.
That is true. There's no respect. That is also true.
You are correct, sir.
Yes, you know
We should probably watch that sometime.
Yeah, we do need to watch Hercules. And it'll be fun to point out that's not how this myth works. That's not how this myth works. That's not how that worked. But,
yeah, because we all know myths are a settled body of concrete stories that never change, right?
Well, it's just factually that he didn't take down the Gorgon. That was Perseus. And also, Thebes didn't look like New York.
Yes, it did. How do you know?
It looked like New York because there were ancient aliens.
Thebes is ancient Greek for the Big Apple. Did you know that?
Well, I'm very certain that they didn't have sundial flashers. I would rather than watch Salesman. Alrighty.
They did now.
Well, we'll watch that. Maybe we'll watch that Sunday or something. It'll be something to put on while you eat.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, since we're not doing Showcase this week, since we've already done 2. Let me see. Alrighty, so in terms of what's happened so far, the last thing we heard from the Dragonstrife was the elves' plans to destroy the canal were thoroughly thwarted, and now the Empire is going to proceed with simply building it as far as they want to. So,
who won? Did the Nutty Lady win, or did Bale win, or are they still fighting it out?
Bale is currently out of the picture.
Oh,
he is currently still marooned on an island.
Oh, bother!
It's going to be his daughter Persephone that's going to be the person to lead the charge.
Oh, okay.
Mainland, but there's an interesting prophecy that she's not going to be the one that kills her aunt Chimera, the Nutter Lady.
Oh, okay, Chimera. That was her name.
Yeah, it's actually a not very subtle reference to Bellerophon and the Chimera.
I'm not in your. I better not be in this novel.
Different.
You mean Chimera, or is it one of those tomato things?
I think it's a tomato thing.
Well, it's Chimera with a sh sound, right?
I at the very least pronounce her name like that because it sounds more feminine that way. But I've heard it both ways. I remember they put it in Batman Beyond. They pronounced Chimera.
Yeah, I look it up. The apparently the Greek word starts with the X, which means that it would be chimera with the hard ch.
Huh.
Yeah, or Chimera or something. But yeah, it would be a ch sound.
Like
But
like chronos, you know?
yeah, so in English it would be Chimera. But I mean, in terms of the name of your character, you can pronounce her however you want to because you're the author.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
essentially the god of this universe.
You can
Yeah,
pronounce her
all words are
Bloog.
made up.
You can pronounce a Bloog if it amuses you. It probably does.
All right.
Sounds about right.
Anyway,
Anyway,
All right. And what happened was the enemy, the elf Arissa, lost her eye because one of her dragon's eye was shot right before he died, and now she's having to deal with the pain of losing her dragon.
bother.
Chapter 20: A World of Infinite Shadow. The world was made from pain. Arissa moaned in agony. The sight of the arrow shooting towards Sisyphean's eye before it struck him burned into her memory. She felt her dragon's pain, still felt his pain. He tried to flee, but with no direction to run toward. The arrow had found the inside of his mouth while he screamed and writhed. Then he died. She pulled away from the horrible memory and turned her attention back to her current settings. Fingers shaking, Arissa felt around herself, only to find that she was in a fine bed. It was as if awakening had brought back all the pain of a sudden landing, specifically on her neck. Tentatively, Arissa tried to open up her single eye, only to find that there was nothing but darkness. Screaming, she sat up, clawing at her face and eyelids as if her fingers could wrench her eyes open. My queen! One of a set of hands pulled her fingers away from her face before pushing them onto the bed. Can you see me? No! I said I can't! She screamed at where she thought he was, spittle flying from her lips. I'm blind! Your dragon, Sisyphean. I know he's dead, you twat! She screamed, wildly swinging her fist, only to hit air, which only served to fan the inferno of her anger. He's dead. The only one who's been with me is dead. Abruptly, she realized there was a bird near her and latched onto it. Almost immediately, her vision became in one with the birds, granting her a full range of sight. Breathing heavily, she made her slave look around her surroundings. The physician was still in the room, but he was a fair distance away from her. Get out, she hissed. I'll call for you if I require anything. The physician bowed, likely more out of habit than from anything else, then left her alone. Alone. Sisyphean, she whispered, then clamped her hand over her mouth and started to sob. Her friend was dead. Her best friend, the only being who completely understand her, was gone. They will all pay for this, Arissa whispered, clutching her blankets and grinding her teeth. They will all die for what they have done to me. The crowd assembled under the shadow of the mountain, everyone staring at the trio standing before the base of the monolith. Bale took Amelisa's hand along with Shalia's, the three of them forming a three-pointed star formation, each person equidistant from the other. Bale and Shalia's hands enclosed Amelisa's, representing her being brought into their family. Let us be joined as three equals. Shalia smiled at both of them. It's actually happening, he thought as he looked at his two wives' eyes in turn. Never thought I'd actually take a second wife. Now here he was. I accept your invitation into your family, Shalia. Melissa smiled at her new sister wife as they Both squeezed her hand. We are now one, never to be parted. We are all one, Bale said, releasing Shilia's hands and wrapping his arms around his two wives. We are united. We are strong. Without letting them go, Bale kissed their foreheads in turn, then smiled and kissed them on the lips. Amelis's was a bit hungrier than he'd expected, while Shilia's was a long, comfortable one, born of long familiarity. The crowd cheered, the orcs thrusting their weapons in the air and roaring, while the humans simply clapped to show their approval. Amelisa grinned and rested her head on Bale's shoulder. So, now that we're all married, how shall we divvy up the bed? Oh, damn it. Bale rubbed his eyes. We got rid of the big one to accommodate one of the orc families. We do have a comfy mattress that we cobbled together, Shilia put in. Not exactly how I expected to spend my wedding night, Amelisha shrugged. I'm just glad I can finally get at someone who can give me good cunnilingus, Shilia grinned. Bale blushed and Amelisa started laughing. Shilia shrugged unabashedly. I love you, dear, but you're terrible with your tongue and fingers. Thanks, Bale said flatly as Amelisa doubled over laughing. And that's the end. And
well, you didn't disappoint, Dunn.
Wait, we started
You
with
really didn't disappoint.
we started with someone grieving over their dragon dying and all that, and then suddenly, out of the blue, we're in a porno thing.
It's like you combined both the real story and the porn parody.
Well, you gotta make sure you hit all the markets. This is just basic, economics of writing.
So, is this scene going to be on the cover of the book? Because if so,
probably not. No,
of course not. You put it on the spine of the book. If it's on the cover, you can't see it from the shelf.
fair enough. Fair enough. So you're going to put it in the Mormon bookshops. That it'll sell like wildflowers, wildfires, whatever.
I don't think you sell wildfires.
There's some expression I'm looking for. I can't remember
yeah,
what
so
it is.
essentially what you're saying, the tone is bulked.
Bulked?
Bulked. Mm.
Is that some slang I don't know?
I usually hear I'm just weird. Maybe I'm using it in the wrong thwarted or hindered.
Oh. Is that what you're saying?
I guess what I was thinking, like,
who's being thwarted or hindered again? I'm sorry.
and then the tone is bulked.
Maybe what you mean is the tone is a little bit
Mismatched.
It jumps a bit.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a jump from oh dear to yeah. Let's do some. You know what? Yeah. This is some. Yeah.
I guess it's kind of just a conclusion to the arc, I guess.
Sorry. Sorry, I'm probably being incredibly rude.
This is the point of these streams, because sometimes we just have funny things happen.
Yep, there was a bit. Oh, whiplash might be the term.
Yeah.
Whiplash. Maybe that's the term.
You're going to need to put more stuff in between there.
Yeah, I think you might need a better transition between the serious fantasy stuff and the porn parody stuff.
Yeah.
Well, technically, it's just two people bringing somebody new into their family. Yeah.
Oh, touching. This is a touching moment in this story. Whoops. That's not the right voice to use. That's not the voice I usually use for that. I usually just do it in a deadpan. But it seemed the right voice this time.
Sounds about right.
I just found another thing I thought I could present, but if we're out of time, I can probably present it later.
Hmm. Let's go with later for right now.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I'll do it later.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we will. Any other thoughts other than I probably need to maybe put kind of something in between there to that's a little bit lighter in tone than the bad guy is emotional pain.
Was he the one whose dragon got killed? Somebody's dragon got killed, right?
Yeah, Erissa. It's a girl, but yes.
And the dragon is a lady, but the owner is a lady too, or a chap?
The dragon was his name's Sisyphan. It was a guy, yeah.
Oh, okay. But the dragon was not the owner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, probably you need to transition
Just a tad better.
gradually move your way gradually into it, and then how explicit you want to get is your business.
Oh, I'm definitely not going to do the actual scene. I just thought I'd just like thanks. That's very, very kind of you type moment.
Yeah, it's a little bit like what I do in my novel, because there's no explicit scenes at all. There's like no reference to, hardly any reference to anyone's anatomy at all in the thing. But then you'll have reference that, but then you'll have allusions to this horribly perverted thing that the Emperor gets up to with cross-dressing monkeys and God knows what.
A monkey.
So
Monkey.
it's kind of gross. So I might have found what the Melvin, Sherman, and Chapman chat was referring to, but I don't really know. I did a quick Google search, and that's what came up. So I don't know what it is.
So it's like apparently some kind of the back room. It's a bizarre urban myth of some kind.
What is?
The back room.
Oh,
idea.
that. Apparently that's getting made into a movie as well.
Which is interesting to say the least.
Specifically, it's based on a specific... There's this somewhat popular web series on YouTube based on the Backrooms. And they're getting the guy who made that to direct the movie.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay, their idea. And that's all I can say about that.
That's all I have to say about that. Anyway,
I think that we'll call it good for today. Well,
Hold on.
all right.
we'll probably have a game night this evening. I am going to try and beat Trip 4 times out of 7 at Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I want to watch The Disaster Artist with her because I think she will find it funny. It is a very funny movie, to say the least. It is going to be very interesting, though.
So
Harry Osborn as Tommy Wiseau.
Indeed.
this is the film about the making of that horrible Rumi film.
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct.
Kill It.
Well, it's really funny.
Kill It Dead.
Yeah, at least this one's intentionally funny.
Because from what I've heard, the making of it is a funny story.
Oh yeah, I've read the book. I listened to the book read by Greg Sestero himself, and it is a riot. It is such massive incompetence on the part of Tommy Wiseau. All right. Well, we will call it good for today, folks. Adios.
See ya.
Adios.
Mariah.